of Regents had a vision to develop their true firstborn college that will spearhead national development through agriculture. At the foot of Mount Makiling, Edwin B. Copeland, together with 7 faculty and 12 students, embarked on the journey to create the UP College of Agriculture, or UPCA. Through its 112 years of existence, the college has produced over 1,000 technologies and variety of plants and animals, 9 national scientists, over 30 outstanding young scientists, and more than 18,000 graduates contributing to agricultural development. UPCA, now College of Agriculture and Food Science, or CAFS, has been continuously contributing to nation building through its instruction, research, and extension function. A mere 10 years after establishment, the college was able to start breeding works with the production of sugarcane varieties with high productivity and resistance to Fiji and mosaic disease. In the 1920s, the importance of agriculture was intensified and UPCA was recognized as neighboring countries began sending their students to Los Baños because of the high quality of education. In the 1930s, breeds with superior characteristics such as the Burkhala pig, Los Baños Cantonese chicken, and Philippine cattle were developed. The 1960s was a fruitful decade for research. Makapuno, a coconut cultivar often made into a dessert, was pioneered and perfected. Meanwhile, the Dairy Training and Research Institute was the first in the country to freeze buffalo semen, paving the way for artificial insemination of local carabaos. Along with the establishment of UPLB in the 70s, the college received the prestigious Ramon Magsaysay Award for International Understanding, Asia's counterpart for the Nobel Peace Prize. In the same decade, the C4 plants were developed. The soil test kits were produced in support of the Masagana 99 program, and the mango induction technique was introduced. Continuing the production of quality research outputs in the 1980s, techniques to minimize post-harvest losses, the accelerated fish sauce manufacturing process, and the rapid test kit for the detection of pesticide residue on vegetables were developed. The 1990s saw many new varieties across species or crop types, including Sinta Papaya, the first Philippine-bred hybrid, UPLB Gold, a durian variety, and Doña Amelica, a musaenda named after the wife of former President Fidel Ramos. The award-winning National Corn-Based Farmer Scientist RDE Training Program, or FSTP, was also established around this time and still remains as one of the university's primary extension programs. In the field of instruction, the book titled Integrating Sustainable Agriculture in the BSA Curriculum, the UPLB College of Agriculture Experience, was published in 1999. At present, the College of Agriculture and Food Science, or CAFS, continues to be the premier institution of higher learning in agriculture and food science, and remains committed to nation building through its instruction, research, and extension programs. In order to produce the best graduates, all of our courses are outcomes-based education, and continuous improvement of the curriculum is being practiced to meet the challenges of the 21st century. As testament of excellence, CAFS is constantly recognized by different organizations. In research, we continue to implement relevant studies with focus on the 12 priority commodities to address food security. Moreover, technologies are constantly developed to aid in responsible food production. Supplementing these are extension activities to disseminate the knowledge generated to improve food productivity and livelihood of the people. We believe that present technologies will future-proof our food systems. Some of our notable developments are ID-Tech, Coraginam, Plant Health and Pest Clinic, Pest Management Tools and Techniques, Smarter Pest Identification Technology or SPITech, Snap Hydroponics, Drone Technology, Rapid Immunofilter Assay for Virus Indexing, Nanofertilizers Fertigrow, Formagrow, Nanobiosensors, Biochar. We at the College of Agriculture and Food Science will continue to promote and nurture a culture with innovative yet conscientious minds and cutting-edge skills to lead and serve the country and the region. We are one college with one goal towards sustainable food systems.
Isang mapagpalang umaga sa ating lahat, mga ka-Aggies. Good morning! We are glad to be with you on this finale episode of Aggie.8 version 7, Rebooting Agriculture in the New Normal, with the theme, Empowering Women for Food-Secured Future. Kaya, mga huwana ng agrikultura, tayo naman ang bida ngayon. This webinar series is brought to you by College of Agriculture and Food Science, University of the Philippines, Los Baños. And we are live via Zoom, YouTube, and Facebook with over 100 viewers mula sa iba't ibang panig ng bansa. So good morning po sa ating lahat. I am Claire Tabernilla from the Institute of Weed Science, Entomology, and Plant Pathology, or IWEP, and I will be your host for today's episode. Just some reminders. For Zoom participants, your microphones are muted by default so as to minimize necessary noises. For our open forum later, kindly throw in your questions sa ating Q&A tab if you are participating via Zoom, or use the comment section for those watching live via YouTube and Facebook. Lastly, you will receive the certificate of attendance after accomplishing the evaluation. The link for the evaluation form will be provided to you by the end of this webinar. So to formally start, ating pakinggan ang panimulang mensahe from one empowered, dedicated woman, IWEP Director, Dr. Cheryl Yap. Magandang umaga, Dr. Yap.
Good morning, Ma'am Claire. Thank you for the introduction. Sa aming dekano, Dr. Eps.8 Agbisit Jr., na laging sumusuporta at gabay ng kolehiyo, sa dalawang masisibag at magagandang Associate Deans, Dr. Adelisa A. Dorado and Dr. Barbara L. Kawili, kay Dr. Pompey Santa Cruz na namumuno ng CAPS Aggie.8 Committee, sa lahat ng miyembro ng CAPS Extension Team, sa ating bantog at dinagalang na speakers, sa larangan ng Social Entrepreneurship sa umagang ito, Dr. Catherine Sabrivega and Dr. Lisa Dacanay, at sa lahat ng manunood at tagapakinig mula Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao, na imbag na bigat, maayong aga, maayong buntag, buenos dias, magandang umaga sa lahat. Sa ngalan ng aming kolehiyo, ikinagagalak ko ang inyong pagdalo sa panghuling bahagi ng Aggie.8 7.0, Empowering Women for Food-Secured Future. Ang atin pong speakers ngayong umaga ay magbibigay ng kahulugan at inspirasyon patungkol sa kung paano ang pagiging isang social entrepreneur. Sila ang magpapatunay na ang isang babae ay may kakayahan na magsasagawa o magtaguyod ng mga makabagong pamamaraan na makatulong sa paglutas sa anumang problema ng komunidad o lipunan. Bilang isang babae ay may kakayahan na suungin anumang balakid makapaglikha lamang ng positibong pagbabago sa sangkatauhan. Ating tandaan na ang mga kababaihan, gaya ng mga kalalakihan, ay may importanteng tungkulin sa ating komunidad at lipunan. At ang isang babae na natuklasan ang dakilang larangan ng responsibilidad ay isang babae na ganap na nakikibahagi sa paggawa ng kasaysayan. Hindi siya isang babae para sa pag-aasawa lamang, kundi babaeng kumikilos sa isang makabuluhang adhikain. Magandang umaga po sa lahat at maraming salamat sa inyong pagdalo.
Thank you very much, Director Yap, for that empowering message. Tunay nga po na it is an honor to be a woman today at sa susunod pa na palaman. Okay, so before we proceed, hindi namin papalampasin ang oportunidad na ito to have a souvenir picture with our beautiful speakers today. May I request everyone in the panelists to open your cameras and give your best smile for a quick photo op. Diba? Diba, ready na po ang lahat? Okay.
Ayan po. Okay po.
Okay po. So I will count po. In 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay po. Thank you po, Ms. Kat, for assisting at in the photo. Okay, so we are very fortunate to have with us two resource speakers who are passionate on social enterprises and economic projects. So let me introduce our first speaker for today. Dr. Marilisa Dacanay is the founding president of the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia, with more than 30 years of experience in social entrepreneurship and international development cooperation. With her initiatives and contributions, she was recognized by the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship and World Economic Forum as Outstanding Social Innovation Thought Leader for the year 2019. She also serves as mentor of social entrepreneurs and pioneer in research and education and social entrepreneurship in Asia. Among the initiatives she has led was a multi-country research that resulted in a set of benchmarks and guidelines for transformational partnerships and women's economic empowerment in agricultural value chains. To be with us on the screen, isang mainit na pagtanggap, Dr. Marilisa Dacanay. Good morning, Dr. Elisa.
Good morning, Claire, and thank you for inviting me in this forum. And good morning, Dr. Agbisit, and the UP CAFS faculty and personnel and students. I have been asked to speak about empowering women in agricultural value chains through social entrepreneurship, or rather, I've titled my presentation, Empowering Women in Agricultural Value Chains Through Social Entrepreneurship. So maybe I can start the share screen. Yeah, okay. So I will be discussing this. Next slide, please. I will be discussing this through 3 parts, basically. I will first be introducing to you what social entrepreneurship and social enterprises are, because I think it's good that we can actually level off on what social entrepreneurship is. And then I'll be sharing with you some stories of women's empowerment from social enterprise best practices in agricultural value chains. And then sharing with you an action research on women's empowerment that was mentioned when I was introduced. This action research produced actually a set of benchmarks for transformational partnerships and women's economic empowerment in agricultural value chains. And then a set of concluding remarks on how I see social entrepreneurship and women's empowerment in agricultural value chains. So let me now start the presentation and discuss what social entrepreneurship is all about. Social entrepreneurship may be seen as entailing innovations designed to explicitly improve societal well-being, housed within entrepreneurial organizations which initiate, guide, or contribute to change in society. So when we talk about social entrepreneurship, there are actually 3 elements. The first is it has to be innovative. Second is it has to explicitly improve societal well-being. And thirdly, that it should it should be housed within an entrepreneurial organization which initiates, guides, or contributes to change in society. No? And these entrepreneurial organizations are usually what are called social enterprises. Next slide, please. So in developing countries, all over the world, social entrepreneurship is a global phenomenon, but in different countries, depending on the country context, it's actually evolved differently. No? But in developing country contexts where poverty and inequality are stark realities, we see the rise of what is called, what I have come to call, and in the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia, we have called social enterprises with the poor as primary stakeholders, or SEPs. What are SEPs, or social enterprises with the poor as primary stakeholders? They are like NGOs, no? Because they are social mission driven. They explicitly pursue poverty reduction and alleviation as primary objective. But unlike ordinary NGOs that depend on grants, no? Social enterprises with the poorest primary stakeholders are wealth creating organizations. So like businesses, they're engaged in the provision of goods and services. No? But unlike ordinary businesses that create wealth and accumulate the wealth for the owners of the enterprise, social enterprises have a distributive enterprise philosophy. They create wealth and distribute such wealth to the poor, who are their primary stakeholders, or they generate positive economic and social value that is distributed to or benefit the poor as primary stakeholders. Next slide, please. So let me now go into some stories of women's empowerment from social enterprise best practices in agricultural value chains, so that we can use this as basis for discussing more concretely what social entrepreneurship is all about. Next slide. I shall first start with a story of Imelda Cervantes from the Philippines. She used to be an assetless agricultural worker in Negros, no? Asakada. But now she is an entrepreneurial farmer leader of NOFTA, the Negros Organic and Fair Trade Association. The Negros Organic and Fair Trade Association was organized by Alter Trade, a social enterprise, as partners in the organic Muscovado sugar value chain and beyond. NOFTA serves is the Federation of Associations of Agrarian Reform Beneficiaries that became suppliers of organic sugar, as well as vehicles for crop and income diversification and community development in Negros Occidental. No? When I was doing my PhD and I went to visit and did my field research with Alter Trade, every community, producer community of Alter Trade had a community development vision and plan. Yeah, and it was a community development vision and plan that was actually guiding what was happening in their in the producer community, and as they relate to their community at large. Negros Organic Fair Trade Association also now owns 60% of NOFTA Fair Trade House, which is the marketing arm of the social enterprise system. So from subhuman conditions of hunger, you know how the sacadas have been for you who know about the sugar industry and its collapse in Negros Occidental. From subhuman conditions of hunger, Imelda's household has achieved food security and has moved out of poverty, like most of NOFTA's member households. No? So let me now go to a second example. Wasti from Indonesia used to be a powerless mussel stripper, the stripper of green mussels, tahong. No? But now she's the chairperson of a cooperative called ISM Sinar Abadi. No? ISM Sinar Abadi Cooperative was organized by a social enterprise called KMM, which is a subsidiary of an NGO called Dompet Duafa in Indonesia. It became a vehicle for enabling the assetless mussel strippers to become owners of bagans. What are bagans? They are the means of production of mussels. No? And the cooperative also became a vehicle for enabling mussel strippers to undertake semi-processing and trading of green mussels. So, in a Muslim-dominated society, usually the Muslims usually actually give alms called zakat. No? The alms that is given to the poor is called zakat. No? But because of this intervention, Wasti had a traumatic transformation from being a mustahik, who's a receiver of zakat or alms, no? To a muzaki, who's a giver of zakat or alms, no? Because they have moved out of poverty. Next slide, please. Let me now go to another example in the Philippines again, Juanita Mamo. She used to be a voiceless indigenous woman in a male-dominated tribe in Sultan Kudarat. But now she's the elected chairperson of the Council of Elders of the KMDO, which is the Kulaman Manobo Dulangan organization, which is a partner indigenous peoples organization of an NGO called TRICOM and a social enterprise called Sultan Kudarat Coffee Ventures Incorporated. This partnership, Sultan Kudarat Coffee Ventures Incorporated and Kulaman Manobo Dulangan organization, are engaged in the production, processing, and marketing of Kape Dulangan, their own brand of coffee, to a growing local market as part of their ancestral domain development plan. SKCVI is one of the more than 50 community-based coffee enterprises comprising the Philippine Coffee Alliance, which is led and assisted by Bota Central with their Coffee for Life program. Their Coffee for Life program, which actually assists these community-based coffee enterprises to actually process and sell their own brands of coffee. Next slide, please. The last example I'd like to share with you is from Thailand. Tin used to be a fish vendor, but now she's the head of a fish processing and slicing group of Fisherfolk Enterprise. What is the Fisherfolk Enterprise? The Fisherfolk Enterprise was assisted by Oxfam to develop the blue brand of responsibly fished formalin-free seafood. The Fisherfolk Enterprise is actually a social enterprise created by the Association of Thai Fisherfolk Federation. And they developed this because they wanted their fishers to benefit from community-based coastal resource management, sustainable fishery practices. So the Fisherfolk Enterprise is where a majority of stakeholders are women fishers who produce quality and standardized blue brand products. Ano yung blue brand? Blue Brand is a responsibly fished, formalin-free seafood brand that was developed by Oxfam in partnership with Fisherfolk Enterprise. And they market Blue Brand products through Fisherfolk shops that are actually in Bangkok. And Lemon Farm, which is a Bangkok-based social enterprise chain of groceries, also carries Blue Brand as one of the products they market. But just if you're interested to know more about Lemon Farm, actually they're also a very interesting social enterprise because they sell more than 3,000 plus natural and organic products from all over the communities in Thailand, and they actually they support participatory guarantee systems. Now, if you know the organic law in the Philippines, it's only now that it was only recently that the participatory guarantee systems for a certification of organic products was actually approved by Congress. And but there in Thailand, there's actually a social enterprise that is marketing more than 3,000 brands of organic products that are sourced from communities. But the Blue Brand value chain of where PIN has actually enabled fishers engage in responsible fishing to earn up to 100% more from selling their fish. So if you saw this for examples, you would see that social entrepreneurship interventions led by social enterprises in different countries, in different contexts also, from fishers to agrarian reform beneficiaries to indigenous people. They have actually gone out of poverty and they've become productive members and stakeholders of sustainable value chains. Yeah. So let me now go to the next slide. Yeah. So let me use this as basis for starting to share with you the action research on women's empowerment in agricultural value chains that actually we developed. Because these 4 examples that I shared with you are culled from a research where we developed the benchmarks for transformational partnerships and women's economic empowerment in agricultural value chains. Next slide, please. So what was this action research? It studied 8 significant practices of social enterprises and inclusive businesses in agricultural value chains in ASEAN. And we answered the 2 questions. How were these grassroots women and small producers empowered? And how can agricultural value chain interventions contribute to building a critical mass of empowered and grassroots women and small producers like Pin, Wasti, Juanita, and Imelda? No? So ISEA, the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia, partnered with our we had partners in the Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia to do this action research of best practices among social enterprises and inclusive businesses in agricultural value chains. And based on the insights from those best practices, we have put together the most important results in a set of benchmarks or aspirational standards, which we call the benchmarks for transformational partnerships and women's economic empowerment in agricultural value chains. Next slide, please. May I now share with you some insights from that benchmarking research? No? So we actually validated that there were three key elements of empowerment. The first is control over resources, whether it's land, ancestral domain, fishing grounds, or even capital. And the second would be control over decisions, and that's the reason why the self-governing institutions were actually of cooperatives and associations of the farmers and the fishers and the indigenous people were actually key to the process of empowerment. And then the third is the capability to manage resources and decision-making processes effectively and sustainably. So sometimes people on the ground that we try to empower have control over resources, but they do not have control over decisions, or even the capability to manage resources and decision-making effectively and sustainably. That's why empowerment programs fail. No? So we saw in this research that the success of empowerment strategies have to do with control over resources, power over decisions, and the capability to manage resources and decision-making effectively and sustainably. And so we concluded that it's really important that in agricultural value chains, there is the importance of building self-governing institutions of women and men small-scale producers. Next slide, please. We also found that social enterprises actually provide two types of services to their social enterprise partners, no? to the women and men small-scale producers. The first set of services are transactional services. What are these? They assist small producers to become better workers, suppliers, clients, which are actually roles involving exchange of goods and services for money. They are market-driven services. No? They are services that you provide the small producers because it's what the market needs, because the skills that you're providing them or what you're providing them is actually needed by the market. But the other set of services, which ordinary businesses do not provide, is actually transformational services. They enable small producers to become conscious agents of change, to improve their quality of life and that of their community, sector, and society as a whole. And we say that while transactional services are market-driven, transformational services are primary stakeholder-driven. Next slide, please. And if you look at, and if we may use the example of the four examples that I shared with you, we can see here that what are transactional and transformational services. So let's talk about the capacity building to ensure timeliness of delivery, volume, and quality of the sugar sample. This is a transactional service, and the provision of improved technology for production is a transactional service. Let's go to the other side. Let's look at transformational services. This includes the capacity building on community-based coastal resource management. This is what we're provided for to the fishers who actually are selling the blue brand, right? But side by side with that, there's capacity building on community-based coastal resource management. Another would be community development, visioning, planning, and management. I shared with you what AlterTrade does with their communities. They actually assist them to have development visions and plans, and implement these plans effectively. And then in the case, for example, of the indigenous people's example that I shared with you, in the case of Juanita Mamo and the Sultan Kudarat Coffee Ventures, the actually ancestral domain development planning and implementation is very much part of what is provided for the community. So if you look at in the intersection, assistance to acquire organic, fair trade, blue brand certification is actually an intersection of transactional and transformational service. And why is that so? Because while the market needs the organic products, no, or the blue brand products, right, or the fair trade products, the process of acquiring organic, fair trade, and blue brand certification also engages the women and men small-scale producers in a process of becoming stakeholders of sustainable consumption and production. That's why it's also a transformational service. No? The savings and credit program, while a purely loan program is actually a transactional service, when you combine it with savings and credit that actually builds the capability for capital buildup for the small producers, then that becomes a transformational service as well. No? And then capacity building to undertake processing and marketing, while that is a transactional service, in the case of Bote Central, no, for the coffee growers, this becomes a transformational service because the coffee farmers didn't used to know how to process and to market their own brands of coffee. No, they used to just produce coffee. Now they are performing other functions in the value chain. Next slide, please. So other insights is the directly engaging small producers as suppliers is important for substantiating one's social enterprise mission or desire to be an inclusive business, in addressing traceability and quality issues required by certain markets, especially linked to sustainable consumption and production, and as a requirement of development programs in agricultural value chains. No? As we know, the usual practice in agricultural value chains is that enterprises deal with traders. But what our research has shown is that directly engaging small producers is actually important for these reasons. And small producers are able to provide the needed quality, quantity, and delivery requirements of the market when they are effectively enabled to do so with adequate inputs, appropriate technology, and community-based innovations. Many times, companies or agribusiness corporations say, but the small producers who are poor, they cannot produce what we need. No? But we've shown in the research that if they're enabled they're enabled with adequate inputs, appropriate technology, and community-based innovations, small producers could produce the quality, quantity, and delivery requirements of markets. And then the third insight in this set of insights for this slide is the best producer community or the best supplier communities are those that are organized into self-governing producer organizations that have achieved high levels of empowerment. No? And maybe lastly, next slide, another set of insights is about women. No? Why and how are they engaged in these agricultural value chains? We've found that women small producers are playing various roles in agriculture and agricultural value chains, but they're usually invisible. They're not recognized. No? When you say farmer, fisher, usually it's still a man, right? And then when women are engaged, they are unpaid or underpaid. And when they're engaged, their participation is constrained by systemic barriers, including their responsibility for unpaid care work. No? What does this mean? No? Women, when they're engaged in agricultural value chains and they're not provided assistance to deal with unpaid care work, they're overly burdened. No? So actually, those that engage women in this way create more problems, as has been shown by our research, but we can go into this more maybe during the open forum. No, because there are well-intentioned, unintended negative impacts of engaging women if this systemic barrier, such as their responsibility for unpaid care work, is not given attention in the interventions. And of course, the other insight that we found is that non-engagement of women usually results to loss of opportunities and opportunity costs. No? There were actually some of the cases. In the case of WASTI, in the muscle strippers, the KMM, or the social enterprise, first engaged the men, no? Because they were the natural, they were the fishers who were actually recognized as such. No, but after 2 years, no, their engagement with them was not resulting to anything sustainable. But it was when they engaged the women actually, that the project became successful. Next slide, please. So based on the the study that we did, no, where I showed you the examples of the cases that we studied, and then the insights. We created a set of benchmarks for transformational partnerships and women's economic empowerment in agricultural value chains, which essentially has 8 elements. First, they need to actually provide appropriate technology and community-based or oriented innovations to women and men small-scale producers. Second, they need to be able to provide a more substantive share of value created over time to the women and men small-scale producers. No, in this example, for this element, what this means is, in the case, for example, of Bote Central, yeah, they assisted the coffee farmers to get a more substantive share of value created in the value chain by engaging them not only as producers of green coffee beans, but as processors and marketers of their own brands of coffee. So the farmers are actually able to get a more substantive share of value created in the value chain over time, rather than just benefiting from being producers of green coffee beans. And then for the third benchmark is actually about food security and resilience, that no matter what agricultural value chain the intervention is all about, food security and resilience need to be a concern. No? For example, in the case of the sugar cane agrarian reform beneficiaries in Negros, they actually Altertrade assisted them to do diversification of crops and income, so that they're actually, during the pandemic, they were very much food secure because they have already diversified in terms of their farms, right? And then the fourth is about the empowerment of small producers. I've already defined to you what empowerment is about, and the importance of self-governing institutions of women and men small-scale producers, so that they have control over decision-making processes. And the fifth element is about stewardship and sustainable consumption and production, that women and men small-scale producers are assisted to become part of these systems of sustainable consumption and production. And then the combination of services that are provided are both a combination of transactional and transformational services. And then the seventh element is about women's participation and empowerment, which is actually a cross-cutting concern. And then there are measurable outcomes of transformation in the agricultural value chain intervention. So these 8 elements were actually what we have synthesized as the factors for success for agricultural value chain interventions in empowering women and men small-scale producers. And we have transformed this set of benchmarks into scorecards, so that we can actually assist corporations, SMEs, as well as social enterprises and agricultural value chain program holders to be assisted to improve their practice in relating or in engaging women and men small-scale producers. Next slide, please. So the benchmarks are actually a set of benchmarks that assist social enterprises and inclusive businesses and other agricultural value chain stakeholders to contribute to the sustainable development goals. No, I'm sure that you already know about this. This is a set of goals that governments all over the world and other stakeholders have committed to achieve for humanity by year 2030. And this include no poverty, zero hunger, reduced inequalities, decent jobs and inclusive growth, inclusive and sustainable industrialization and innovation, sustainable consumption and production, sustainable communities, and women's economic empowerment, as well as partnership for the goals. All these sustainable development goals are actually going to be our goals that inclusive businesses, social enterprises, and agricultural value chain stakeholders can contribute to if they adhere to the benchmarks. Last slide, please. So let me now go to my concluding remarks. So I think what I've shown to you this morning as a contribution to this discussion is that social entrepreneurship actually provides innovative pathways to sustainability and the empowerment of women in agricultural value chains. The benchmarks that I've shared with you are a set of aspirational standards for women's economic empowerment as they raise the bar on how enterprises and other stakeholders in agricultural value chains could bring about women's economic empowerment in agricultural value chains. But as I've shared with you, there are also benchmarks they're also a pathway to sustainability, as they're meant to provide guideposts among enterprises and other stakeholders in agricultural value chains that are aspiring to make a meaningful contribution to the sustainable development goals. No? So we're sharing with you this, and we're hoping that the set of benchmarks for transformational partnerships and women's economic empowerment in agricultural value chains can actually become the standard or benchmarks that all agricultural value chain players could aspire to, so that they can all be players in achieving the sustainable development goals. Thank you very much.
Maraming salamat, Dr. Lisa. So very encouraging na makarinig muna ng mga istorya about the efforts and achievements ng ating mga kapwa babae. Really inspiring. Tunay nga na babae tayo, hindi babae lang. And of course, for emphasizing the key elements of empowerment, 8 specific elements and all the vital insights from your benchmark research and their importance para sa pagkakaroon ng matagumpay ng women's economic empowerment for agricultural value chain and social enterprises. Thank you very much. And see you po later ulit sa ating open forum. Okay po? So before we proceed to all our ka-Aggies, feel free to key in your reactions or questions for Dr. Lisa sa ating Q&A tab or comment section ng Zoom, FB, or YouTube. And we will be happy to entertain those later sa ating open forum. Okay, so at this point, let us proceed to our next resource speaker, another committed and empowered woman, Dr. Catherine Sobrevega. Dr. Catherine is currently MEDA's country director here in the Philippines. She is happy to be back after more than 20 years of international programs to manage MEDA's newly approved project in the cacao sector of Mindanao. She has been an international development professional with over 30 years of NGO work experience and has been for over 15 years managing a range of women's economic empowerment projects in Afghanistan, North Ghana, and Myanmar. And also in Myanmar, she has just finished her assignment in managing a 5-year, $18 million Global Affairs Canada funded project on improving market opportunities for women, which supported more than 25,000 women families and farmers. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Dr. Catherine Sobrevega. Magandang umaga po, Dr. Catherine.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to your team, to Dean and to Miss Marie. Good morning to everyone who are here right now. I think some of you are from the different LGUs and the colleges. So I'm very happy and honored to be one of the panelists, one of the speakers for this topic. It's very close to my heart because I've been working with women's economic development projects for years, bringing them in different parts of the world through my work with other NGOs, and recently for 14 years with MEDA. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I hope I will be able to share some things, especially practical sides on how we can engage stakeholders like the government agencies and even like the students and the colleges. How can we as women be able to support or to support women to be active participants in the value chain, just like what Miss Marie mentioned a while ago. So that was very informative. I was listening to her because that is really what we were also doing, the transformational and the transactional, but we were not how do you call this, like we were not that this is the transactional or this is transformational, but this is how we do things for MEDA. So probably before I go in, I would just like to provide a short presentation about my organization. As what mentioned, I've been with, I'm a management industrial engineer, and after graduation, I've been focused on community development. I found it very interesting, and I saw that I can really do what I have learned from school, which is from proposal development to implementation, and I can really do it. And then from from a private sector. I actually started with Ayala Foundation, managing the, I'm not sure, probably some of you were not yet born that time, the Batang Negros, when there was like a famine in Negros. Like I was managing their projects there. And then I went to work with Care International, who has a big presence also in the Philippines during that time. And then I went international. First, it was in Afghanistan, as what mentioned, and I was managing the microfinance project of funded by the World Bank for Afghanistan by Care. And then that's where I met my current organization, MIDA. So MIDA is a NGO. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's an international economic development organization. But unlike other NGOs, I'm sure you know, they have different sectors. They are in health, water and sanitation, construction, microfinance, so many. But then with MIDA, we're just like focused on economic development. Anything that would provide additional increased livelihood to the people we wanted to help. That's where we wait, huh? So that's what we do. So Mennonite Economic Development Associates, because during that time I was already working more on economic development. I realized that I will be learning more on this, because we're just focused on anything that provides economic development, agriculture, market systems, investment. So these are the things that we do. So MIDA has been around for 70 years, and we were in 70 countries around the world. We're very strong in Africa, South America, Central Asia, which is the Afghanistan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Ukraine, Jordan. And then our first project in Asia was in Myanmar, which I managed. Like, we started it 5 years ago, and I'm so happy being the only Filipino at MIDA around the world. I'm very happy that MIDA is finally in the Philippines. We just got the approval of our new project this year, and currently I just arrived actually from Davao, because we're starting the project, getting back into our table and see if the assumptions we made and the strategies we were thinking 2 years ago, because the proposal was made and submitted 2 years ago, and then it was only now after 2 years that it was approved, and in between that is the COVID, di ba? Parang ang dami nang nangyari in between. So just looking at, are the assumptions still the same? Are the strategies are still feasible, and things like that? And then we're starting the office, and because our first project is in Davao Barm region, we just think that it's kind of like feasible that probably we can just have our main office in Davao City instead of doing it in Manila, because also of the logistics of traveling back and forth to Manila. So we're setting up our small office right now in Davao, looking at probably implementing activities there for the first 2 years, and then we will be moving to the Barm region. Barm, because Barm is a priority of the Canadian government. Barm is a priority of the Filipino government, and as a Filipino myself, I'm really excited, and I really would like to have something that we can do in that part of, in our brothers and sisters in that area. So we are on that in the next 5 years. So we're kind of like more than, so as I mentioned, MIDA creates business solutions to poverty. Actually, MEDA is Mennonite Economic Development Associates. So Mennonite, I'm not sure if everyone knows, Mennonite is a Christian denomination. Para siyang Catholic, Baptist, or Protestant. But then Mennonite's value is basically more on supporting business. So they support their flock through business, because they believe that once you support a business, it will help others more. No, you can help the villages, you can help the communities, you can help other people that you cannot support, not through your because some Christian denomination provide support through charity, but sa MIDA, they provide support through business. And I think it was brought to the NGO itself, yung MIDA, yung organization namin. So whatever projects we support, we usually make sure that we leave behind sustainable business in the country or in the villages, communities we work with. So parang that's where our strength is. We always think like, only business can create solution to poverty. Parang ganun. So we also transfer that mantra to our partners or to the women that we serve. So the vision is to unleash that people may unleash their God-given potential to earn livelihood, provide for families, and enrich communities. We always believe that each one of us has our potential to earn livelihood. Yun lang minsan, di ba, kahit naman sa Philippines, it's just the opportunity. Yung they are not given the opportunity to know information, especially on women's empowerment. Women's empowerment start from knowing information. So if women are informed, if they know what to do, they can earn a livelihood. So para sa amin, we start from that basic. So values is collaboration. We collaborate with all our stakeholders. Stakeholders means the farmers, the groups, the private sector. We're very strong as well in private sector, the government agencies. In fact, the project that we're doing in Davao, we have already collaborated with Department of Agriculture, Department of Trade and Industry, even with the Climate Change Commission, because this involves also concerns on environment, the UP Research Institute, and also UP Mindanao. We wanted to get all the information that is available in the country to make sure that we can implement it. Kasi minsan there's just so many research, especially in the colleges or in the universities that are not being implemented. No, so minsan sayang sila ba that once they are implemented, you can see, and then you can change. I think that's what we did also in Ghana, wherein we partnered with a research institute from the US, and whatever research they have, they're doing it with our women farmers, and they were able to see the improvement on how they can make the research stronger. So accountability, we make sure that we're accountable to everything that we do. Respect to all the partners, that they are kind of like equal stakeholders, especially in the project. And then entrepreneurs, we want to build the entrepreneurship among all the, even if they're kind of like a farmer or a woman, there's kind of like an entrepreneurial spirit in each one of us. So we're like in and all over the world. So I just want to highlight, what our recent experience in Myanmar. Kasi yung recent experience namin in Myanmar is already the result of what we did when we started this Women's Economic Development Project in Afghanistan, which is a very male-dominated society. How can you make sure that the women are participants to the economic development, or the women can also be active participants in the market system? When I started in Afghanistan, so they don't allow women to be out of their backyards when they cannot go to the field to plant and everything. So women are not usually provided with agronomics, with agriculture extension. So usually if the Department of Agriculture comes, they only look for men, because men are the ones who are farming, and then women are not, are not. So what happened is, so whenever then the women learn farming from the husbands. Unlike men, when we started to engage women in agriculture extension, providing them training and everything, so women comes back to the house very excited, and then telling it to the husband, telling to the son. So what happened is the training that we give to the women trickles down to the family, the husband and everything. And then what we saw after that is that the women are doing this in their small garden inside the house, and the men are, they were like amazed. Oh, how can she was able to do this? And then he decided now to invite the women to be out in the field and use it, and use the technology or the the knowledge that she learned from the trainings to a bigger field, and they were able to learn that one. So while at MEDA as well, our strategy when we go to one country is we do market assessment. It's not just like, oh, you plant this, you plant that, but then we look at the whole system itself. What products can these farmers will have like a bigger income, which is the market and everything. And then we connect the dots, no, making sure that they talk to each other, they're connected, they know where to sell, they know what is being required and things like that. So in Afghanistan, we were in high valued vegetable value chain. So it's the cabbage, potato, tomatoes, so all these things which are just being planted in the villages because the women cannot be out, right? So what happened is that it's the traders now going to the villages and getting the women's produce, or at times the women are the ones going now to the market and sell their produce. So you can see now a lot of these vegetables being available even off season, like yung cucumber, instead of just a once in a year harvest, they can now harvest 4 times in a year because of the presence of greenhouse, so other modern technologies. Then we went to Ghana. In Ghana, we look at like what kind of crops can the women. Usually, MEDA is also like focused on women and youth, because we know that if this sector will be supported, it can add to the income of the country. So when we went to Ghana, so what are the crops that women can go into? And in Ghana, it's kind of like different, like in the Philippines. In Ghana, they have like a men's crop and a women's crop. So if it's a men's crop, you cannot go into that, no? So if this is a women's crop, the men cannot go into that. So men's crop are usually the rice, the corn, and then the women's crop is like peanuts, soybeans, like vegetables. So we just saw that there's potential in soybeans, because we saw that Ghana is importing lots of soybeans for their feeds and oil. They have a very big livestock industry. So they're kind of like importing the soybeans and then process it into feeds and then make oil for their paintings and like that. So we decided to go into the soybean value chain, starting from production up to the marketing. Our project was in the poorest region in that country. And then after the project, after 5 years, there were like more than 25,000 women planting, not to include the men who saw like, oh, the traders are coming to the villages with their trucks, with their money, cash, and a weighing scale, no? And like, it's the same here in the Philippines, that usually women take the traders take their produce and then pay it later, no? So doon, they saw that, it's cash, it's available. So some of the men started to also divert, some of their farms into soybeans. And then what we did as well is like, we told the processing companies, because the processing companies is probably like 3-4 hours out from that villages, that there are already, say, 5,000 women already planting. So because they're very entrepreneurial, they went there and connect with the women directly. But then there are more entrepreneurial businessmen that what they decided to set up their plants in that region itself. So they don't need to think about the logistics. They don't need to think of the aggregators. So they decided to set up the plant. So I'm very happy. Like after 5 years of the project, there are now 4 processing plants there of soybeans, the feeds and oil. There's a soybean food for children. There's a soya cocoa. There's a soy milk processing, and also another food processing kind of thing. Then women started to eat, try to incorporate soybeans into their food intake. So it's kind of like a holistic kind of thing. And women became more empowered because they have money, they have money to buy, they can think, because usually the man is the one deciding what to plant, where to get the seeds, what to do. But now because women handles the money from their soybean farm, they were able to decide, what seeds, how many acres they will be planting, and even have the decision making to tell that their daughters will go to school. Their daughters will continue to be in high school. Before that, they cannot even think of that. And then in Myanmar, it's a combination of two, which I can show this, which I can show. Before that, MIDA is only in this yellow one, more on transformational, women's leadership and decision making, access to finance, and even access to the market. But then we decided as well to include the private sector. Usually private sector, especially, they don't care whether their customers are men or women, right? They just care about like people are buying, and usually the one who are buying from them, especially input suppliers, the one buying are the men, right? So they just don't care, So when the project came, we just tell them that there's also market for women, so they have to be sensitive on that. Probably instead of selling fertilizers by sacks or seeds by sacks, probably they can make it smaller, the smaller packet. Like for example, the women wants to plant in a 1 acre plot, then they will already have like a package of fertilizer and seeds for 1 acre, and that became a hit, So the private sector saw, that the women are starting to come to them because they sell in smaller, and then the women are starting to really plant. They know what to buy. And all these things. So, and then we also decided to engage the government. Like there's also value when you also provide extension services to the women, because they are more they attend the training regularly, and then they follow orders, things like that. So those are some of the transformational things that we did. And then the transactional is that because the private sectors, especially those market actors, know what are the things that we are doing with the women. So they're provided good agronomic practice, like organic fertilizer and all this. So they know what we are doing to these women. The women are also organized, so they don't need to go from one village to another to look for women, to look for farmers who can provide them the required product or crop. So these women are organized, they are trained. So the market actors directly engage with the groups, with the women. So there's like a transactional going on, like they're already buying, they're already selling. So there's already like money involved in that partnership. So I just also would like to it's like in Ghana, we were in soybeans. In Myanmar, we are in 2 ethnic states. Kumbaga, ito yung mga tribal areas. In one area, we were into rice value chain and high valued vegetables. And then another area, it's also on high valued vegetable like garlic, turmeric. So in the other side, which is the rice value chain, so women are provided with good agronomic training on rice. But usually when they go and mill the rice still comes out as broken rice, So they cannot sell it at the premium kasi sira pa rin yung rice. So what we did is to study the system, the whole system, and we saw that most of the rice mills are outdated. Kumbaga, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and they were not been properly maintained. So our project decided to have this matching grant wherein those interested rice millers who wanted to upgrade their rice can apply for this grant. So what happened is most of them, because they saw that many farmers are not going to this rice mill because they kind of like new, upgraded. So they also decided to upgrade their rice mill. And what happened is these women are now getting high valued, high premium rice. They just don't use it at home, but they can also sell it, not just in their village, but even outside the region. So now their rice is kind of like a premium when it comes to that ethnic region. And there's also one entrepreneur who saw that there's still some broken rice and everything. He decided to set up a rice flour mill in that area. So what he's doing is like he is buying all the broken rice and then process it into flour and then sell it, sell it to the supermarkets and everything. And because the rice flour is not yet unknown, so he decided to train these women how to process cakes, pastries using rice flour. And then, it decided the market for rice flour perked up. So the women, it goes back even to the rice farming. So they were able to produce more because there's more demand for the rice and also for the rice flour. So this woman, as she worked with a husband working on garlic, corn, chili, and they own 3 acres of land. She's been participating in the project as women lead farmer and become women sales agent. So she sells rice cracker, and onion cracker. She is working business with 2 local rice traders. So she's kind of like, so because the women are informed, they know where to sell, they know how much. So they kind of like more empowered to do the marketing themselves. So she also knows about the natural fertilizer and the chemical fertilizer, and they kind of like also connected with these suppliers. And she receives better income after she becomes sales agent. And now she's receiving $9.4 million per year. So probably $90,000 kind of thing. And one of the things that we do in the project is like, because we're working with women, some of them are, because women usually don't, they don't attend trainings, or like if they're alone, right? They're kind of like, unlike men can go anywhere, attend training, even if they're alone, but women is not. Women needs a group or a support. So we decided to start it with community organizing, grouping the women into 10 to 20, and then they select their own female lead farmer. So in that way, we are also supporting that lead farmer to become leader, So he's the one usually going to the training, especially if it's very far, going to the training, receiving it, and then come back to the village and then provide the same training to the women. So we were able to get 2 outputs here. You have a strong organized group of women, and then there is a strong empowered lead farmer that we were able to develop. In fact, in Afghanistan, one of the lead farmers that we developed became like our, became like a congressman in their town, because she was empowered. She was talking to all the women groups, and the women knows her. So the women's voted for her, and she knows, yung plataforma niya. She said, I will be working with agriculture, I will work in women. So kind of like we're very happy, because from that small village intervention, she was able to do it even within the village, or even outside the village, or within the region. So we saw women leaders really emerge from this intervention. And then another thing that we saw is that during the life of the project, because you come from like production and then you go into the marketing, so it's kind of like difficult also for the market to go to the village and then talk to each the women. So we decided to identify entrepreneurial women within the group. So you know it when you see an entrepreneur, right? They kind of like a small idea, they can already like think more about it, they can more creative, and they can go to business right away. So we were able to identify entrepreneurial women, and then we provided them more training on business, on marketing. So we call them now the sales agent, the women sales agent. So we call it the sales agent model. We started in Afghanistan, because the women are not allowed. You cannot see women in the market. They only allow women that are older or probably widow. They can go out of the village. But other than that, it's not just your family that will curse you, but also the village. You're a young woman, you have family, and then you're going out to the market and everything. So they allow these women, the widow and the older ones, to be their sales agent. It kind of like different in like Ghana. In Ghana, they are really like the kind of like entrepreneurial women. So they are the ones buying the produce of the women, after harvest, and they are the one connecting with the market actors. So they said, like, I have, say, 20 tons of soybeans in this village, and then he will talk to the processor, and the processor will just go and take and then pay the sales agent, and the sales agent pay the other women. At the same time, he goes other way as well. During the start of the season, he's the one asking for what they want and what kind of fertilizer. So she's the one connecting with the buyers in the city, and then bring them in the village. And then later on, this supplier in the town decided to build her like a branch in the village. So anything about fertilizers or pesticides, they just go to her and buy. So we saw this emerge, even now, like the groups can, they can after the projects, the group probably may not decide to continue, but then this business will continue, right? If this woman is earning something, even after the project, she will continue with that, and the women will continue to have that relationship to the buyers or to the buyers and to the market actors. The same thing, she's earning a lot. Even like in Ghana, there's even one woman, one sales agent who were able to buy a truck. She was able to invest in a truck so that she can buy all the produce, not just in the village, but in neighboring village, so she can bring it to the market. So business experience. So we also provide a lot of business and marketing experience to her. Yeah, so that one. So we were probably like just in one village, we're kind of like probably in more than 70 or 80 villages in one ethnic tribe. The same thing. So the women in our project is either a women lead farmer or a women sales agent. So the lead farmer is like we're training them on the leadership, and the women and the women sales agent we're training them on business, on mentorship. So we also have like kind of like a mentorship kind of thing, mentorship on leadership and mentorship on business, making sure that these women are highly informed, capable, skills, they know. You can really see the difference when women are informed, because they talk a lot, they kind of like engage to you more, and I think that's one of the things that we really need to look into when thinking about engaging a project. Like how can we make sure that our project is inclusive? How can we include women here? Because usually there are many projects in the countries where I work with, like funded by USAID, by other big donors, and usually when they get participants, usually it's the men just attending the training, right? Even like in some of the agriculture extension, only men attends. You seldom see women, or usually there will be 1-2 women, and then later on the women will find it not encouraging to attend because she's not being heard, or usually she is ashamed to tell her question, to ask question and everything. But then if your project say this project is just for women, then the husbands will definitely push their wives to attend. Oh, you have to attend that project, you have to participate, because they only asked for women. So that's the only time you tend to have women participants in the project. So if your project is kind of like deliberate to support a certain sector, I think you also have to work on that one. You also in Afghanistan before, so it's kind of like difficult, because the villages, the traditional leaders will also ask us that, okay, we will accept your project, but no men can enter, meaning our staff, so that in that very conservative area, even the women, even the children are not allowed to work, so we decided to have this internship for women to come into the project. And then usually when they were attending the interview, the father and mother will also come and see the office, see who are in the office, and they kind of like feel comfortable, because I was the country manager for that project, and they say okay. So kind of like we try to respect the tradition, but make sure that we can do something about it. They can still do something about it. So these children, the interns that we have, became the role model for other women. that agriculture is also like a good sector to work into, and we can have a career, and we can be a role model also to other children. And when they went to the village, some of the children, because some of the daughters, they don't even have like a plan probably to go to college, they saw these young women doing the training or speaking in front, and then they would say, I would like to be like her, I would like to be like her. So that our project also became a model for other NGOs how to engage young women in the project. Because usually if the project is all like all men, there's no like one or two women, usually you tend to get out of focus, there's no gender lens. But then if there's like a woman in your team, even one or two, they will be able to tell you like what are the things that will be beneficial for women, what are the things that will be attractive to the women, so they can also participate. So I think that's all for me. I'm just happy. Probably there's also like a lot of people here in the local government. I'm also very happy that MIDA is finally, and the Global Affairs Canada has approved our project, and MIDA is finally here in the Philippines. So I'm managing our current projects. It will be focused on cacao sector, but also looking at other livelihood, because we're targeting not just the farmers, but the family. What are the other livelihood that can support the cacao farmers during the time that, it's not yet harvest and everything. And then supporting, probably looking at working with cooperatives, with the private sectors. Why in Davao? Because Davao is where the cacao farms are thriving, and also the private sector is very active. We want to make sure that the private sector is our partner in supporting the smallholder farmers. And they have a stake as well in supporting the project, because usually the private sector is just concerned on how much they can buy. But then they're also thinking, there are private sectors that also thinking like, we wanted to help them in their gender and their governance structure and everything, but they don't have money to invest on that. It's kind of like also like a big money and an effort to invest on those activities. But if there are NGOs who have that activities, I think they should be open, so that we are supporting their business, and at the same time we are supporting the community that they wanted to serve. I think that's all from me. I hope I was able to share my experience of like really like having women in the value chain should start at the beginning. Even like at the conceptual planning of the project. You wanted it to be more inclusive. You wanted to have more women in the value chain, because as what the earlier speaker was saying, women are more diligent. They can follow, recording and everything, and more like, because men are kind of like busy in the farm, and usually they cannot think about everything, right? But then if women are part of the value chain, from production up to the market, I think it will be like a good project to work into. So thank you very much.
Salamat po, Dr. Catherine, for your very telling presentation. First, thank you for sharing the vision of your organization, that all people may unleash their God-given potential to earn a livelihood, provide for families, and enrich communities. That's very beautiful and encouraging po. And we truly salute you for all your efforts and actions on improving market opportunities for women. And I am sure that our viewers have also reflected on how your approaches can also be applicable in their specific communities. Again, for our mga ka-Aggies, go on and type your questions for our speakers in the chat box or Q&A tab. We have our correspondents, Ms. Annabel Albaitar and Prof. Julie Aiza Mandap, to consolidate our queries from the different platforms. Kaya naman, muli namin inaanyayahan sina Dr. Lisa and Dr. Catherine to be with us on the screen to provide insights sa mga katanungan o komento ng ating mga manonood. To facilitate the open forum, may we also invite our moderators, Dr. Jeline Sapin and Prof. Jenelu Grande, an entomologist and plant pathologist from IWEP. Mga binibini, take it away.
Maraming salamat, Ma'am Claire. So, ako nga po pala si Jen, faculty from IWEP, and together with Dr. Jeline, we'll be reading your questions. But before we open the floor, let me greet po ang ating two beautiful and very empowering resource speakers. So, a pleasant morning po, Dr. Dakanay and Dr. Sobrevega. Morning po.
Morning.
Morning po. And good morning po sa lahat ng participants po natin ngayon na naka-tune in po sa Zoom, sa YouTube, tsaka po sa Facebook. So tunay nga pong nakaka-inspire po ma'am yung mga na-share niyo pong experiences po ng mga women natin. And also for Doc Lisa, like from a very challenging situations po ng mga kababaihan, nagkaroon po sila ng significant contribution in agricultural value chain. For Ma'am Catherine naman po are how women can be actively participate in market system, especially na dominante po yung mga kalalakihan, and how transferring the knowledge to women make them empowered and be engaged. So let's begin the open forum po, ma'am. So this question is for Ma'am Catherine. Among all the programs you manage overseas, what have you identified as the most challenging problem abroad na nangyayari po sa ating bansa that remains a problem po hanggang sa ngayon?
I think for me, everything for me parang seeing being into agriculture sector and the women, it's kind of like the same thing. It's more of like information, like for example here in Department of Agriculture, the same in other countries, they usually have beautiful programs, framework, paano mo siya dadalhin sa baba, and how can you inform the others? Yung bang pag hindi mo alam, you will not ask, right? You will not be interested. So ako, while engaging as well with our partners from DA and DTI, nakita ko talaga how beautiful are the frameworks are. Ito pag nagawa ito, magiging okay. But then usually yung mga nandun sa doing the frameworks and all the thinking, usually iba yung nag-i-implement sa baba no? Iba yung nag-i-implement sa baba. And if these are not properly monitored or walang mga benchmarks or baseline or monitoring, you don't know if the same framework is being implemented. So sa akin yun lang, how do we encourage? And minsan kasi, di ba, kahit naman din sa ibang bansa, yung parang nagsawa na sila, one project after the other, tapos walang nangyayari, parang nagsawa na sila, ganun din yan. So they kind of like, they don't already accept new innovations, but then para sa akin, it's really more of being open and, accepting new learnings kahit ano na yung narating mo, but then every person or every organization, every people you meet, you will learn something. You will learn something from them, and probably you can implement it. Kaya sa akin maganda yung yung what we do in other countries. We usually do a lot of learning visits. Kasi kahit anong sabihin namin sa farmers, kung hindi nila nakikita na it will happen, or it will be as successful, it will not, they will not do it, So sabihin nila, ganyan din yung sinabi sa amin, ganyan din. So usually bring them to the successful business, successful farms, communities, and they talk, and it's kind of like more of like experiential findings, experience that they can ask and they want to follow. And usually then, sa atin, kahit naman tayo, we always look for role model, mentors, someone who will guide us on the right path. And I think hindi lang yan sa atin, the same with the farmers, the same with the village women. They wanted to see someone role model na pwede nilang i-follow.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Catherine, for answering that question. So my next question would be, kay Dr. Lisa po, so susundan ko lang po yung discussion nyo from your presentation. Na-mention nyo po kanina about the issue of the non-engagement ng mga women in agriculture, no? And when you are, yung pong nagka-craft kayo for benchmarking doon sa ating research, no? And one of the reason is yung systemic barrier nga, yung sinasabi niyo po, yung unpaid labor work. So can you just elaborate on this po, ma'am?
Thank you for that question. Yan, yung systemic barriers na sinasabi natin na kinakaharap no ng women when they are actually engaged as stakeholders or engaged to participate in value chains or agricultural value chains, yung binanggit ko kanina, yung unpaid care work, 'di ba? Pag pinag-usapan natin yung yung responsibilidad ng kababaihan, right? They actually are responsible for caring for the family, 'di ba? Sila yung naglalaba, sila yung nagluluto, sila yung nagte-take care sa anak, nagte-take care sa elder people, 'di ba? Sila lahat yung gumagawa nun at lahat yon ay unpaid care work. All right? That's what we call unpaid care work. It's really unpaid work that is to care for the family and to care for children and the elderly. Yan. So, ang problema pag ini-engage natin yung mga kababaihan na hindi tayo conscious dito sa mga ganitong klaseng barriers no, to their participation is that pag nag-participate, halimbawa sila, nagiging mas burdensome yung participation nila on top of unpaid care work, di ba? So, sa mga, for example, in Indonesia, yung isang very stark na case na napag-aralan namin sa Indonesia, no? Sa Indonesia, parang yung mga kababaihan in-engage no sa isang coconut sap sugar value chain, no? At they were able to actually contribute 50% of the household income just for their participation in the coconut sap sugar value chain, no? At happy-happy yung mga tao dahil yung sa families and all that dahil ganun ang nangyari. But when we studied what happened to the women, they were actually only sleeping 4 hours a day because they were cooking coconut sap even at night, no? And yung at night, pati yung kanilang yung sleep na dapat ginugugol sa pagtulog ay hindi na nila nagagawa, no? At they only sleep for 4 hours. So, parang in the long term, magkakaroon ng problema yung health ng mga kababaihan. So, parang yung overly burdening the women with the economic responsibilities na hindi binibigyan ng attention yung responsibility nila for unpaid care work ay talagang nagiging problema sa agricultural value chain intervention. So, for example, I'll give you a positive example naman. Doon sa kay Wasti, yung example ko tungkol sa muscle strippers na si Wasti na ay naging head ng isang cooperative, no? Doon sa Indonesia naman, no? It's in the same country. Para anong nangyari, yung cooperative mismo nag-provide ng daycare services, no? Nag-provide ng daycare services for the women. So the women were did not only own the bagans, yung means of production for producing the green mussels, but they were able to go to trainings, participate in the value chain without problems because may daycare center na sinet up yung cooperative with the assistance of yung KMM, no, yung binanggit ko nga na social enterprise kanina na tumulong mag-set up ng cooperative. And because of that, because may daycare center, may playground yung mga children, no? The women who actually could not participate otherwise were able to participate, no? So, yung binanggit ko nga kanina, dun din yung sa example na ito, yung nangyari na 2 years na yung KMM, yung social enterprise na to, they were trying to engage the men, no, dito sa value chain na ito. They couldn't become successful because the men were wanting to get employed as drivers. They were wanting to do this, to do that, ganyan. Hindi mag-succeed yung pag-set up ng cooperative at yung pagta-transfer ng ownership ng bagan sa kanila, ganyan, for 2 years, no? And then when the women were the ones who were actually engaged, and then the women were provided the daycare services, no, by the cooperative itself also, then mas nabigyan ng puwang yung participation ng women in a meaningful way without actually overburdening them, no. I'll give you another very good positive example. Dun sa alter trade naman, no? Dun sa sugar farmers, agricultural sugarcane workers sa Negros na naging agrarian reform beneficiaries na now entrepreneurial farmer leaders na sila and members of associations and cooperatives. From the very beginning, nag-introduce yung Alter Trade ng isang gender and development program. So yung mga nagkaroon sila ng policy from the beginning, may policy na equal work for equal pay, no? Kasi talagang mas mababa yung binibigay na pay for women compared to men for the same kind of work in the farms, no? So may policy sila na ganun. Tapos nag-institute sila ng equal opportunities for men and women to actually go into trainings, ganyan. At they provided the daycare centers for the women to be able to participate, ganyan. And parang dun sa gender and development programs din, kasama yung mga kalalakihan. Yung hindi lang yung kababaihan ang in-engage nila, no? Kasi ang reality sa ground, marami sa mga producers are actually mixed groups of men and women, no? So dun sa mixed groups of men and women, both women and men became part of the gender and development program, yung gender sensitivity. Kaya yung mga kalalakihan din naging aware dun sa gender roles, yung ganyan, in ways that naintindihan nila, no, yung problema ng kababaihan, so that of course fast forward ngayon, no, after more than 10 years, yeah, of intervention, yung sitwasyon nila nung pandemic, no, Alter Trade, we actually created a video because na-impress talaga kami dun sa nangyari sa kanila during the pandemic. Yung women and men, the women did not feel overburdened with household work in the same way that the women in other areas na walang ganitong programa na gender and development were actually burdened, no? Why? Because the men were actually helping them with the household work, no? At ang maganda dito, halimbawa, nung sabi ko nga may community development vision, lahat ng mga communities ng Alter Trade, no, sa Negros Occidental. So parang nung may mga co-op sila, every time na may dividends na dinidistribute na, okay? Yung mga kalalaki at kababaihan, nagsha-shopping sila ng mga appliances. Sabay-sabay, no? Isang truck sila, pupunta sila sa bibili sila ng appliance. Guess kung ano yung second most popular na appliance na binibili? Can you guess? Anyway, para hindi tayo mag-waste ng time. Actually, yung washing machine. Okay?
Oh.
Washing machine dahil sabi nila para mas madali ang paglaban namin at yung kalalaki at kababaihan man, kasi both men and women were already washing clothes, no? Pero nahihirapan sila pareho, pero nung bumili sila ng mga washing machine, parang because of as a result of their dividends that they get at the end of the year, no? Din sa co-op nila na nag-grow na, parang nakakatuwa na parang they were actually buying things that would actually help to unburden women with unpaid care work, but also the men are able to help better because of yung washing machine. Siguro kung yung mga husbands nyo or your family members are also in middle class families, right? Yung parang mas madali syempre na mag-wash kung washing machine ang gamit mo kaysa yung mano-mano, di ba? So, yun yung mga stories na tingin kong nakakatuwa na parang at the heart of it is really giving attention to these systemic barriers that women face, na talagang cultural barrier to kasi even if women and men are given equal rights in the Philippines, halimbawa, no, women and men have equal rights, no. We are actually one of the most progressive in terms of legal policies, no, na giving women and men equal rights, but the cultural barrier of women being responsible for unpaid care work is still there, no? And because of that, when we are unconscious about engaging women, sasabihin lang natin, engage natin yung mga kababaihan, magandang sila ay mag-participate, unless we give attention to these cultural barriers, no, for their participation effectively, then we might be creating, yun nga, yung mga consequences unintended, pero parang dinidisempower actually natin sila rather than empowering them, no? I hope I was able to explain that.
Yes, ma'am. So, thank you po for that answer. This question naman po ay for Ma'am Catherine. My question po is, how can we become one of your partner?
I think I shared in the chat box, our how do you call this, the website of MIDA and then our project in the Philippines. So you can just look at it and see if it's a fit. No, it's not just like MIDA, kami mag-ano na fit kayo, or it's also you. Are you fit? Gusto mo ba to? Will you be excited to be part of the project?
So additional question po para po sa inyo. So this is from Facebook, from Josh Magno, BS Agriculture student po dito sa UP Los Baños. May vision po ba kayo for MEDA in the Philippines? Na-mention nyo po na you're happy na it's finally in the Philippines. Do you have certain goals po for this area? As well as how this can be achieved considering the current scene for agriculture in the Philippines?
I think that's usually what MIDA is doing in other parts of the country. So once we start, then they can look at the environment. Kasi merong ibang country mahirap magtrabaho, di ba? Hindi very restrictive yung government, even sa registration and everything. Tapos and then it's difficult yung mga yung mga local people, ang hirap makakuha ng local staff, but then if they see na masarap magtrabaho sa Philippines, it was easy for us to get a registration, madaling katrabaho yung mga local government, the people are nice and everything, they would look, we can look at other alternatives. I think yung we also want to see if MIDA is also fit in the Philippines, we can make a change, we can make a difference. Then probably we can look at other value chain, we can be in other regions of the, ang sa akin lang, being a Filipino, I'm happy that they were able to give a chance to see what is in the Philippines. And I think marami tayong pwede tayong ma-offer kasi in other countries we even work with like illiterate, yung hindi ba nakapag-aral na how do you call this, mga agriculture extension workers, pero talaga nagtatrabaho, pero tapos ang hirap bang mag-English, yung mga ganun. Tayo, we offer a lot more, we have a very good, yung natural resources natin, we have everything, masarap katrabaho yung mga local government units, marami tayong matatalinong yung mga human resource natin are just like, they're kind of like we have, they can speak English kahit driver or kahit so I think once we have this, we made this project a successful and nakita nila how to engage with the Philippines, in the Philippines. I think MIDA can also think of other business, of other projects.
Thank you, Dr. Catherine. Sana nga po mas marami pa pong engagement ang MIDA dito sa Philippines. Okay po. So another question po is from our Zoom participant kay Dr. Address to Dr. Liza Nakanay. Okay, ang name po niya ay Elizabeth M. Canson, Chairperson of BMMFKAI, a farmers association and owner-manager of Kalel Food Products Trading. We're producing milk products to continue the business and become sustainable in their business. Ang question po niya ay, where can I find assistance in order to learn how to produce quality cheese and other milk products that can compete in the market? Ay, ma'am, unmute po ng mic, ma'am.
Sorry. Thank you for that question, but I might not be the best person to answer this kasi UPLB, I think you can yung CAFs ba, I think can actually provide a better answer to this because I do know that the Department of Agriculture has programs for this. The DOST has programs for this, and also kung Carabao's milk ang pinag-uusapan natin, may Philippine Carabao Center that actually provides assistance in this. But hindi the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia does not provide this kind of technical assistance, yeah. So baka yung UP CAFs may pwedeng banggitin na mga ways of helping the cooperative.
Thank you, ma'am. So ma'am, ito pong question ay para po sa inyo pong dalawa, kay Doc Catherine and kay Ma'am Lisa. So yung question po are, what are the traits of a woman? Ano po kaya yung natural na meron po tayong mga kababaihan that you think help you the most in being a successful social entrepreneur po? So maybe Ma'am Catherine, you can start answer the question. Ma'am, sorry.
Sorry. I think not just for women but also for men, for everyone. I think it's like being open to new learnings. I think ano yan isa yan sa talagang kahit na yung mga local staff ko or yung mga farmers, I want them to be open-minded and see and then decide for themselves whether they will continue with it or not. So being open to new learnings, I think being entrepreneurial is also another trait for the women to succeed, kasi yung parang lagi mong iniisip ano yung benefit sa akin, what's my ano yung business case, laging ganun, what's the business case for me, okay, I invest my time here, what will I get, etc. And I think being diligent, I think yung women, I like to be working with them. Pag sinabi mong record keeping, they really keep the record, or when they attend the training, talagang nagsusulat, and then when they go and share it, makikita mo what they share is really what they heard. So I think for me that's kahit na siguro kahit tayo, not just the farmers but kahit tayo, I think it's more like open to learning, being more entrepreneur and creative, and being empowered. And you can be empowered through reading, learning, listening, things like that. And I think supporting other women, I think isa din yan sa yung if you support other women, you see yourself as inspiration to other women. So you do things that will inspire them. I think isa din yun sa magandang attitude ng babae.
Yes, ma'am, I agree. So for Ma'am Lisa?
Dagdagan ko lang yung binanggit na, I think one of the most important is kasi social entrepreneurship ang pinag-uusapan natin, ay yung concern for others, na parang you're not just concerned about yourself and your advancement, but you're actually concerned about being a blessing to others. Yan. Kasi importante, pag pinag-usapan natin ang social entrepreneurship, hindi natin kalimutan yung social doon, no? Na you're actually, and you see yourself as an agent of change for others, right? But also, parang yung entrepreneurship kasi entails that you think outside the box. Yan. So hindi ka nag-iisip based on what is the usual way, no? But you're actually thinking of innovative ways and innovation beyond. And for you to be able to think about to create new things and to innovate, you need to be very familiar with what you are innovating about, no? Kasi kung hindi ka familiar with what you are innovating about, hindi ka makakapag-innovate, right? And then siguro din, as yung social entrepreneurship, like any entrepreneur din, you will need to look at opportunity. You need to look at threats as opportunities. Kasi halimbawa, poverty, di ba? It's a threat, right? Ang daming poverty, ang daming poor. But it's also an opportunity to actually help to improve the quality of life of many poor. Yung ganun ba? So, parang two sides of the same coin yan na hindi para bang where others see a threat, you will see an opportunity, ganyan, for making lives better and all that. So, siguro yun yung mga importante.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Takanay and Dr. Sapevega. So we have another question from our Zoom participants. Okay, so probably either sino pong gustong sumagot nito. Okay, so sabi po dito ay, Ma'am, there are cases of polygamy in Mindanao. Meron pong husband na may 26 wives po in South Cotabato. If I am not mistaken po, main reason po daw ay para may makatulong sa kanya sa farm niya po. What is the best way to solve this societal problem since it hinders women from attaining their full potential? So, yun po. Sino pong gustong magbigay ng opinion or comments about this?
26. Grabe naman, 26 wives. 26. Actually, personally, on my part, I experienced that in Afghanistan. They are allowed to have 4 wives. And then, ang sa amin lang is, parang they allow all of the women to participate. I think may nakita nga ako doon na parang tribal leader siya, tribal chief. And sa kanila kasi, the more wives you have, parang it's a kind of like prestige honor on their part to have, and then, well, you have to respect, it's kind of like the Muslim and the Christian, you have to respect religion in any way, so, we try to respect culture, tradition, but then at the same time, it should not hinder you in implementing your project. Paano ba makakatulong and everything. So yun, parang we just talk to the tribal leader and telling him that, it has to be like all the women should participate, it will be good if all of them are informed, etc. But, it's kind of like difficult to really like yung makikialam ka ba on what's the tradition and kasi yun na yung nila yun ang, and then usually morals and everything is also like it's kind of like yung environment mo yung nagdi-dictate if it's like morally acceptable or not, and because they are in the Muslim country, so it's acceptable. So what, as a Christian, as a Catholic, sa atin hindi. So what can you do about it? You are working in a Muslim environment or countries. You just have to respect the tradition.
Yeah, that's a hard question because I think religion and culture are actually very difficult to handle. But tingin ko, we also have a program in BARM, no? And ang ginagawa namin is we're trying to promote a culture and practice of social entrepreneurship, yeah? And I think it's when you create models that work and makikita ng mga tao na nagwo-work na yung mga women ay involved at engaged yan and they're becoming empowered, that you're able to show the way in terms of another way of living, di ba? That there is a way of living your life as a woman na hindi kinakailangan na asawa ka lang, right? Or asawa ka lang ng one of the many wives of Muslim men, no? So I guess individually kasi mahirap mong i-confront yan, no? I think you need to actually address the socio-cultural and the socio-political aspects, no? So halimbawa, policies will also help, right? Yung parang right now we were able to successfully incorporate social entrepreneurship in the BARM organic law, no? So parang tingin ko yung pag-enshrine ng social entrepreneurship doon at paggawa ng implementing rules and regulations ganyan will actually help to create an environment for social entrepreneurship to flourish, and maybe mga initiatives such as yung example ko na nangyari sa Indonesia, yung si Kiwasti, no, na naging woman leader na siya ng ISM Sinar Abadi Cooperative, can also happen in BARM. And in fact, just last week, no, nagkaroon kami ng ng session on social entrepreneurship, tapos nagkaroon din ng session where nag-share yung KMM mismo, no, yung social enterprise na in example ko, nag-share sila mismo sa mga tao sa BARM kung paano ba yung nangyayari sa social entrepreneurship, engaging women, ganyan, sa rice value chain nila, no? And I think that actually encouraged many people. And yung ding shinare nila yung paano ba yung social enterprise and the halal, at halal, di ba? Na-encourage yung mga tao na, uy, posible pala yun, no? Kasi sa ngayon, napaka-traditional pa mag-isip. I think yung ating society, yung mga Muslim communities, even in terms of zakat, yung zakat actually in Muslim communities in Mindanao, marami doon ginagamit lang sa pagtatayo ng mosque, yung ganyan, pagtatayo ng mga religious parang religious artifacts, ganyan ba? Na sa Indonesia, yung zakat ay ginagamit to empower women. Alam mo yun? So parang I guess we also can learn from best practices of in other countries where women have been empowered through using din yung an interpretation of the Muslim faith na mas progressive, no? And I think yun yung tinatry namin gawin dun sa aming program sa BARM. We're trying to introduce these concepts para mag-think outside the box yung mga tao doon at magsimula silang mag-isip ng social entrepreneurship as a way towards empowering women and men, for that matter, in agricultural value chains and beyond. Yeah.
Yes, thank you po. Ma'am, para po sa inyo pong dalawa, any last piece of advice or words to encourage all our women viewers today who would like to venture in social entrepreneurship or take the lead in agri-related programs? So maybe I can start with Catherine.
I think for me the best advice is, being good in what you have, being good in where you are now, and be an inspiration to others. I think that's one. And then if you would like to, either you go into social enterprise, or you support a social enterprise, or you go into social enterprise projects. What is important is for you to be, to be empowered as a woman, and see where is your how you can contribute, how can you participate. I think that's one thing. Like, even like, and research, you can do so much on it. You can use it as, as part of your, as part of your support to the women causes. And it will be like, you can be an inspiration to your, to your friends, to your sisters, to even your children, to your children, and to the community as a whole, what you're doing, why you're so, and then putting heart on it, because people will see it, that you're working from the heart. You're really committed. You're really committed in doing these things for what, it's not for your own glory, but because you wanted to help, to support. And always think that, the things that we're getting, like our work, the work, it's also an opportunity for us to do his mission, right? Parang maswerte lang tayo kasi we are working, and at the same time helping other people through our work.
Thank you, Ma'am Lisa.
Yeah, siguro well, social entrepreneurship kasi is a new set of it's a new field of study and a new career, no? And it's not something that it's been there for 20 years, but parang hindi pa siya ganun ka-ingrained na. In fact, we're still in the process of convincing UP to have a social entrepreneurship program, no, to be incorporated in all it, kasi it's multidisciplinary. So actually, parang tingin ko malaki yung pwedeng magawa ng mga universities, no, sa pag-incorporate ng social entrepreneurship in their curricula as subjects or even as a major in different levels, no. And ito nga ay subject na parang ini-incorporate namin doon sa batas na we are trying to propose in Congress, no, which is the Poverty Reduction through Social Entrepreneurship Bill. Meron siyang provision for universities and schools to actually incorporate social entrepreneurship as part of the curriculum, no. And tingin ko malaki yung pwede magawa ng CAFs, no, as to develop a model of how a social entrepreneurship course can become in an agricultural school, no. And ang daming opportunities for that, no, because I think in the final analysis, parang we're all wanting to contribute to solve, to our social problems, ganyan. And poverty and inequality and sustainability issues are there, ba? Pati climate change ngayon, 'di ba? Talagang it's really raging, no, yung problema tungkol sa climate change. And I think if we are wanting to contribute to that process, no, and you are wanting to go into entrepreneurship, I think social entrepreneurship is the way to go. Because in social entrepreneurship, you're actually able to pursue a social mission side by side with creating wealth, which you help to distribute among the more unfortunate and the more and the less endowed among our brothers and sisters. Right? So parang importante siguro na sa mga estudyante, no, sa mga faculty, yan, sa mga LGUs, yan, you can assist in social entrepreneurship in different ways. And of course, if you're an aspiring social entrepreneur, I think it's important that you get in touch with social entrepreneurship resource institutions who could provide you some level of training and some level of capacity building para you actually are able to get into social entrepreneurship in an informed way, no? At hindi ka parang you're not just, parang going into it blindly, ganyan, but you're able to have some basic tools to start your social enterprise.
Totally agree po sa inyo, Dr. Lisa and Dr. Catherine. So that actually concludes our open forum. And again, thank you very much, Dr. Lisa, Dr. Catherine, for openly answering all our questions. And of course, for sharing your stories and talagang naka-inspire sa amin, naka-motivate, no, as a woman, no, in this kind of field, yung social entrepreneurship. And marami po talaga kaming natutunan. Kaya thank you very much.
Yes, I totally agree with you, Ma'am Jen. It was such a privilege to have this fruitful discussion with our two empowered women. Sabi nga ni Ma'am Catherine, we need to be open for the new learnings. From Ma'am Lisa naman, dapat think out of the box. And we will now turn you over back to our host, Ma'am Claire. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Jen and Ma'am Jeline, for facilitating the forum. And again, to Dr. Lisa and Dr. Catherine for accommodating the questions and for all the practical motivations and advices that you have provided us. Indeed, we are truly fortunate to have two incredible and powerhouse women as our speakers for this finale episode. So now, to show our appreciation, I'd like to present this certificate to Dr. Catherine Sobrevega and Dr. Marie Lisa Dacanay for serving as resource speakers on the topic social entrepreneurship during the Aggie Peace Talk 7.0, Empowering Women for Food Secure Future, under the webinar program Rebooting Agriculture in the New Normal. Given this 19th day of October 2021 at the College of Agriculture and Food Science, University of the Philippines, Los Baños. Signed by Dr. Pompey C. Santa Cruz, Chair of the CAPS Webinar Committee, and Dr. Elpidio Agbisit Jr., Dean of the College of Agriculture and Food Science. Let's give them some virtual applause. Po. Salamat po, salamat po.
Salamat po.
So muling paalala that the certificate of attendance will be received after answering the webinar's evaluation. You may access the evaluation form through the link na ilalagay sa chat box or comment section, or you can scan the QR code that is currently flashed on the screen. Again, kindly accomplish the evaluation form and the certificate of attendance will be sent to your email. Now, as we come closer to the end of this series, aming iniimbitahan on screen the Associate Dean for Research and Extension of CAPS UPLB, Dr. Barbara L. Kawili, to give us some closing messages. Hi, Ma'am Bambi.
Thank you, Claire. So magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat again. On behalf of the College of Agriculture and Food Science, I wish to thank everyone who made the Aggie Peace Talk Season 7, Empowering Women for a Food Secured Future a success. As we conclude this season, we hope that we tackled the different aspects of women empowerment and hopefully inspired not just women, but all genders as well. So our sincerest appreciation to the Institute of Weed Science, Entomology, and Plant Pathology webinar team for hosting today's episode. Thank you very much to our speakers for today, Dr. Catherine Sobrevega and Dr. Marie Lisa Dacanay. We learned a lot today on how women are empowered through your insights, local and global experiences, and amazing partnership stories as social entrepreneurship advocates. So CAPS is very excited po to work with both of you. Today's episode highlighted how women are not second-class citizens, but equal to everyone regardless of gender. So to all participants, thank you for staying with us since Season 1. So we appreciate the messages and chats you sent us. So because of you, we are driven to continue to offer relevant webinars to engage you more in agriculture. So we are glad that you are interested in agriculture, which gives us hope that we have partners and forerunners who are with us in achieving a food secured future. So now, more than ever, is the time that we shift and give importance to the sector that provides food for us, since we are confronted with issues on food security. So Ernest Egeman said that life cannot be without food. The same with our society, we cannot live without women. Therefore, we cannot live without food and women, as these play crucial roles in our life and society. So together, let us attain a future wherein no one would go hungry. To everyone, empowered women for a food-secured future, Hiraya Manawari. Back to you, Claire.
Thank you, Ma'am Bambi, for wrapping up today's episode and webinar series. And again, to our speakers, we truly appreciate you becoming of this part of this webinar series. We wish you all the best sa inyong mga organizations and endeavors. I'd also like to extend our gratitude to the CAPS webinar team, the IWEB team assisting us behind the scenes, and to all who made this series possible. At sa ngalan ng IWEB and CAPS UPLB, thank you our dear participants for spending your Tuesday morning with us. We hope to see you again in the next season of Aggie Talk. Abangan ang mga susunod na programang handog ng College of Agriculture and Food Science. So make sure to follow the CAPS official FB page and YouTube channel, and also the FB page of our institute. Once again, I am Claire Tabernilia, finally sharing words from PCW Juana. Desisyon mo ay mahalaga sa kinabukasan ng bawat isa. Ikaw na. Have a good Tuesday. Maraming salamat. Stay safe and healthy mga ka-Aggies. Paalam!
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much po. Salamat po.
Thank you po.
Doc Lisa and Doc Catherine, I'll get in touch po with you again. Thank you po.
Okay, thank you.
Salamat po, Doc Lisa and Doc Catherine.
Salamat po. Thank you, thank you.
Hail college dear, thou learning's fountain, head of worth untold. We proudly sing thy praise and wave thy flags of green and gold. We love thy fields and pastures where our daily work is done, and nature's endless secrets are unraveled one by one. Agriculture college dear, devoted sons will ever be. Unceasing inspiration do we always draw from thee. We come from all the regions of this eastern island fair, and trustingly we place ourselves in thy protecting care. With Mount Makiling standing guard in its majestic view, and Laguna's placid waters lending splendor to the view. With life's sunshine, there is no place more charming, blessed with God's more bounteous gifts. Agriculture college dear, devoted sons will ever be. Unceasing inspiration do we always draw from thee. We come from all the regions of this eastern island fair, and trustingly we place ourselves in thy protecting care. Agriculture college dear,